Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we will review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Shabbat, pages 14 through 20, Yudalad through Chaf. 14. Shtei korot, if you have two crossbeams that are being used to adjust a mavui, to allow carrying inside on Shabbat, Achat yotza mikotel zeh ve'achat yotza mikotel zeh. One crossbeam is emerging from the side of the entrance on one side, and another crossbeam is emerging from the wall on another side. Ve'enan nogot zu bazu, but they do not touch each other. There is a gap in between the two various crossbeams. Pachot mishlosha, if that gap is less than 3 tfachim wide, ein sarich lavi kora acheret. There is no need to bring another crossbeam to try to adjust the mavui and rectify the situation, but rather we can invoke the principle of lavud and regard the two crossbeams as being connected, and no further action will need to be taken. 15. Rabbi Meir Omer, kol davar sheyesh bo ruach chaim, anything that is a live being, a sentient being, an animal, ein osinotan lo dofen la sukkah. You cannot use the side of that animal to function as a wall of a sukkah. V'lo lechi lamavu, and you cannot use the side of an animal to function as the vertical post, the lechi, to adjust a mavui to carry in the alleyway on Shabbat. V'lo pasei beiraot, and you cannot use a live animal to function as the L-shaped boards which enclose an area around a well. V'lo golel lakever, and you cannot use a live animal to function as a cover over a tomb. Rabbi Yossi Aglili adds one further qualification, that you cannot use the side of a live animal for the purposes of writing a bill of divorce for a woman, in kotvin alav gitei nashim. 16. Here the Mishnah addresses the topic of inferior partitions used to enclose an area under exigent circumstances, that sometimes we will allow less than perfect partitions when we are desperate. Mishnah says, "Makifin shlosha chavalim zel lamala mizeh vezel lamala mizeh." You can take 3 ropes and position them carefully, one on top of the other. Ubilvad shelo yihu ben chevel lechavro shlosha tfachim, provided that there is no gap in between any of the 2 ropes greater than 3 tfachim. If there isn't such a gap, then we can invoke the principle of lavud, and the various ropes are connected to each other, and we will regard it as though this area is being surrounded by full solid partitions. And the thickness of the 3 ropes has to amount to slightly greater than 1 tefach in order that the partition shall at least be 10 tefachim high, meaning if there is slightly less than 3 tefachim gap in between the various ropes, and the ropes themselves are a thickness of 1 tefach, then 9 plus 1 equals 10, and you have the requisite height for a machitza. Alternatively, instead of having horizontal ropes, you have vertical posts. You can use vertical posts, provided that they are not spaced a distance greater than 3 tfachim, one from another. So again, we will invoke lavud and consider it as though there are vertical posts all the way through and there is a full partition. B'shayara dibru. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says these leniencies allowing inferior partitions only hold true concerning a caravan. When you're traveling in the wilderness and you stop on Shabbat and you want to enclose a certain area to make it a space in which one can carry a reshut yachid, then you are allowed to do this. However, Chachamim omrim lo dibru b'shayara lebehoveh. The mention of the caravan is just an example, but not the only example. Whenever you are out and about in the yonder, and you need to do this, you are able to do so, even if you're not in a caravan, even if you're traveling alone. Yud Zayin, 17. Tanu Rabbanan, Mincha Yotze Milchemet Reshut. If a machane is going, if an army is going on a war expedition of a voluntary nature, a discretionary war, Milchemet Reshut, Mutarin Begezel, they are allowed to steal Eitzim Yeveshim, dry wood, meaning typically stealing, theft is a big sin. You're not allowed to steal. But when the army is out soldiering during a discretionary war, there are certain rules that are relaxed for them, and they are allowed to take without permission from the supply of dry wood that abounds. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema Afronim B'chol Makom. Yehuda ben Tema adds they are allowed to seek quarter wherever they so choose, meaning they don't have to get permission from the homeowner to station themselves wherever it is that they are. In the United States, for example, in the U.S. Constitution, there is a ban on quartering. We cannot force anybody to take on soldiers. But the halakha is here saying, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema, that for a discretionary war, the private homeowner has no choice but to allow the quartering of soldiers. And if a person were to die while in the army, while fighting in a discretionary war, they are buried wherever it is they are found, where their corpse is found. They are not brought back to a military cemetery, even though the spot where they die might have been private property. Nonetheless, they acquire that plot for themselves. 18. Here we have a Homeletic interpretation about the story of creation. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar, Dio Partsu Fayalola Adam Rishon, that the first man, Adam Rishon, Adam, had a face on two sides of his head, meaning there was a masculine side to him and there was a feminine side to him. Zachar nekeva bara'am. The verse in the Bible that justifies this interpretation is Shne'emar Achor Vakedem Tzartani, that God created a person Achor Vakedem, front and back. 19. In Shir HaShirim, we find the verse Kepelach Harimon Rakatech, like the halves of the pomegranate are your temples. Reish Lakish explained, Al tikra rakatech, do not read your temples, but rather rekatech, your empty ones. She'afilu rekanim shebach, mitzvot karimon, that even the empty ones in Klal Yisrael, the people who are not righteous ones and scholars, but rather the lower-ranking Jews, on the basis of poor behavior, nonetheless, even the rekanim, the empty ones, are filled with mitzvot, like a pomegranate is full of seeds. So we should never be dismissive of the lower-ranking Jews when it comes to piety. Even they are filled with mitzvot. 20. Tanya, kol mechitza hasuya b'Shabbat, any partition which comes into existence on Shabbat, ben b'shogeg, ben b'mesid, whether it was built inadvertently or whether it was built deliberately, ben bonus ben bratzon, whether to one's liking or against one's wishes, Shma mechitza, nonetheless has the halachic status of a mechitza. So it doesn't matter how it came about, and that it came about on Shabbat. An area that becomes enclosed with mechitzot, even if it happens on Shabbat proper, not prior to the Sabbath, it is already considered to be an enclosed area, a reshut hayachid. Everyone have a great week.